Hi, bestie. Thank you for being here today. Welcome back to Living with Ease. I am currently on my study break right now because if you didn't know, I took and passed the stupid bar exam, but in order to get sworn in New York, you still have to take the NYLE and the MPRE, and I haven't taken the NYLE yet. I'm going to in like a month or two or whenever it is, and then the MPRE is this Friday, and I did take the MPRE during law school, and I failed it because I did not study for it. I'm going through the same course that I did last time, and I realized I only did 10% of the course last time, so no wonder I failed it, but it's this Friday. So anyway, I'm on my study break right now, and hopefully, well, I actually won't, I was going to say hopefully next episode I'll be like, oh, I passed the MPRE, but I don't think I'll know for a month because they always take a long time to let you know. But I'm not too worried about it. I'm just not feeling that great today, so I'm not in the mood to be studying. Anyway, hi. Today, we're going to be talking about OCD, which a lot of you asked me on my Snapchat to talk about. I was asking you guys what you wanted to hear from me on this week's episode. And OCD has been such a big part of my life. Honestly, I think basically my entire life. I don't really remember ever thinking normally. And when I think back at times in my life, I'm like, wow, that was definitely OCD. And I think there's so much shame behind OCD, and people don't really talk about especially the weird, I have weird OCD, and there's so much shame behind that. And for the longest time, I didn't even know I had OCD. I thought I was literally just insane and so messed up in the head. And it's if you have OCD, you know, it's you think really disgusting, shameful things. And anyway, I'm going to talk about it today, and I'm going to tell you all about my OCD because for the longest time, I didn't talk about it to anyone because I was embarrassed of it, and I think there's a weird stigma around OCD. And I also think a lot of people do think OCD is just, oh, I need my house to be clean. And then when you tell people about what your OCD really is they're whoa, what is wrong with you? So I'm going to talk to you all about what is wrong with me, which is nothing, I guess. I have OCD, but I'm not actually crazy. And hopefully if you have OCD, maybe this will make you feel better about your own OCD, because I love when I see TikToks of people saying their intrusive thoughts on TikTok and really just being yeah, I think this. And they'll say they're really disturbing thoughts, which I can't even get myself to say all of mine. But it's very comforting to see other people think like that. So I'm just going to delve into it and tell you everything today. Like I said, I think I've had OCD my whole life. I wasn't diagnosed with OCD until a lot later on in life, but when I look back at my behaviors and the way that I've thought, I definitely for sure think I've had OCD since I can remember. My first memories that make me think that, okay, yeah, that was probably not normal behavior and that was probably OCD was when I was very little, 4 or 5. I have this vivid memory of thinking whenever a police officer drove by, I had to think in my head over and over and over, I love police, I love police, I love police. And I thought that if I did not do that, I would get arrested. And I had this really strong, intense fear of getting arrested, which for a 5-year-old, I don't really think I was facing any risk of being arrested, but I was so terrified of being arrested. A few months ago when I was home, I was going through, my mom has this box of all my old artwork and projects and everything I did when I was little. And there's all of these drawings I made in first grade and second grade and kindergarten of me just drawing police officers and writing all over the paper over and over, I love police, I love police, I love police. And I didn't even know any police officers, didn't have any passion to be a police officer. I was solely writing this to avoid arrest, which, yeah, I think that's, I can't say for sure, but I think looking back, that definitely was the start of my OCD. And I have always just been a very anxious, worrying person. My whole life, I can't really remember a time that I was not anxious or worrying about something. I think for the beginning of my years and in my childhood, my OCD really manifested, aside from fearing I was going to get arrested in kindergarten. I also was very scared of getting kidnapped in an abnormal way. I remember so vividly in first grade, this person came in and talked to us about kidnapping and like stranger danger, and probably with all the other kids in the class, like maybe it scared them a little bit, but like didn't sit with them. That conversation sat with me to this day for the rest of my life. I have the biggest fear of being kidnapped, and I did not even like think about it until that day. And from that day, I started obsessing over it. I remember after that person came in and talked to us about stranger danger on the bus ride home, I was like so scared because I learned like people could pose as your parents' friends and like want to take you from the bus stop. And I remember just being so freaked out on the bus ride home. And from then on, I literally slept with a whistle around my neck because I like logically thinking, I was like, if someone comes in my house in the middle of the night and tries to take me, I can blow the whistle. And while I think it's good to be aware of like the dangers of being kidnapped, I think like to take it to that degree was probably abnormal. And I continued to do this like probably until like 4th or 5th grade. I'd always have like a whistle somewhere nearby. And this fear of being kidnapped also then turned into a fear of my house being caught on fire. I used to be so scared of my house catching on fire. I don't know when this fear developed. I would go through a mental checklist of everything in my room that I would need to grab, that I would want to save from the fire, and it would stress me out so much. And I'd also keep the whistle nearby for fire purposes because I would get scared that I was going to get stuck in my room and that I could blow the whistle to let people know that I was still in my room. Like, yeah, there was like so much stress and anxiety, and like I just overthought everything so much. Maybe that was more anxiety than OCD, but I think the way my brain held on to things, it was most likely OCD. And then none of these fears went away, but things just kept growing. I also have this and still struggle with this to this day, is like this intense fear of my family members or people close to me dying. And I have struggled with this my whole life and can't remember a time where I wasn't scared of people close to me dying, to the point where like even now, like I don't want to voice it because I'm scared if I voice it, something will happen. I've always had this intense fear of people close to me dying. And it's like, obviously it's normal to not want like close family members or close friends to die, but to me it is like, and always has been, crippling. When I was growing up, whenever my parents would leave to like go out to dinner or something and I was left with a babysitter, left with my brother, I would always in the back of my head be so scared that they weren't coming home. And I remember when I would cry that my parents would leave me, it wasn't that I was like scared of being left alone with the babysitter. I loved my babysitter. It was more I was scared my parents were going to get killed while they were out and not come home. And I think that definitely was not a normal way of thinking, and that was definitely OCD. And to this day, when someone doesn't answer their phone, I think a logical way of thinking would be like, oh, maybe they're busy, whatever. If someone close to me doesn't answer their phone, I automatically assume they're dead and like start to really panic. And if it's like been a while and like I try to call them again, then like I start to really spiral. And I never ever have voiced this to anyone, how scared, like no one in my family or close friends knows how scared I am of them dying, but it's like crippling, and I'm constantly thinking about it and constantly stressing out about it. And I think moving to LA was really hard for me because my biggest fear was like, now that I'm not on the East Coast, like am I like not going to be able to prevent people from dying? But like that's just not how life works, and I'm trying to each day get better and better about that. But my whole life I've always been scared of everyone around me dying, being kidnapped, fires, being arrested. Like I definitely can't really remember a day my brain ever thought normally was the point. I never really thought about it much. I just was like, this is the way my brain works. Even this is another story I remember that definitely was OCD. I remember when I was in 4th grade, me and my friends were in her computer room, like back in the day when there was a computer room, and we went on AmericanGirl.com, and on AmericanGirl.com you could send these like emails to people, and you didn't have to put your email, you could make up any email and then like put any email in. So for mine, like we were all prank emailing people, and I prank emailed someone. I remember I put like it was from Flower Girl like at Gmail or something, and then like to someone else, and in the email it was just like kiss my butt, like I don't know, something stupid like a 4th grader would say, and sent it. And my friends and I just laughed it off. But then I remember that night I was sitting in my bed and I was like, I am going to prison, and like what if I get Flower Girl murdered because the person who she sent this email to saying kiss my butt gets upset, and what if they bring it to the police and they find our IP address, and then I end up getting in trouble and I get arrested. And I remember this night so vividly because like my brother was talking to my dad downstairs and like they were still awake, and I remember thinking like as I was like trying to fall asleep, this might be like one of the last nights that I sleep in my home and hear my family talking, because I'm probably going to prison. And my friends just laughed it off and like probably didn't even really think of it after. Well, actually, one of my friends definitely did think about it after, because she used her real email address and emailed our teacher telling her to please move. So she actually did get in some trouble. Like, that is like a real reason to get anxiety. I used a fake email from Flower Girl, but I was worried like Flower Girl was either going to get murdered or come after me and I was going to get arrested in the middle of the night. So yeah, long story short, my brain has never thought normally, but I didn't think anything of it until 8th grade is when my OCD started to take a weird turn and like a darker turn. And this is the OCD that like I was so embarrassed to talk about for so long, and it still feels like weird and uncomfortable to talk about because it makes you sound really weird. But I promise, like before I get into this, like I'm not a murderer. I don't want to kill anyone. It's just OCD. But when I entered 8th grade, I started to have these really weird obsessive thoughts that I was going to kill someone. I would be standing in the kitchen, and if there was like a knife obviously in the kitchen, I would think like I could take that knife right now and slit someone's throat, or I would like think that I could strangle someone. And it would be like these really graphic thoughts. I would not want to hang out anywhere near the kitchen with my friends because I would be so scared that I would open the drawer and grab a knife out and slit their throat. And I know that sounds really crazy, and it's not something obviously I want to do. It's something I was so terrified of doing. But I started to have these like very graphic, intrusive thoughts of like different ways that I would kill someone, and it got to the point where it's all I could think about, and I would sit up at night being so terrified that something was seriously wrong with me and I was a murderer, or like going to be a murderer. It got to the point where I would lay awake and like think about going downstairs and like telling my parents they needed to check me in somewhere. And maybe this like also goes back to like my fear of like also being arrested, because I was like, I don't want to go to prison. But like it got to the point where I was like, I need to go to prison right now, or some like mental facility where I can be locked up for the rest of my life, because I was so certain and so scared that I was going to like one day like accidentally snap and kill someone. And one night, this was probably the most relieving night of my life to this day. I was really scared and really freaking out, but it was so bad and I was spiraling, and I was like, I need to go check myself in somewhere. And then I like Google searched like I am scared to kill someone on Google, and then like tons and tons and tons of results came up about harm OCD. And I was like reading all of these things and seeing other people talk about like their fears of how they would kill someone. And I remember just feeling so relieved, because I was so scared to look it up and have like nothing come up other than you need to go check yourself into like some facility or like go to prison. I was so scared. And then when I saw that other people were going through the same thing and it was actually very normal. I actually wasn't diagnosed with OCD later on until high school, when I had to go to therapy for a whole different reason. That I was like doing drugs. My mom made me go to a therapist, and then we like got into the OCD there, and that's when I like realized I had OCD. And then later on I went to therapy for it in college. But yeah, it's not like my thoughts of being scared I was going to kill someone stopped after I read that, but I was able to feel comforted by the fact knowing like before I had no idea what was going on in my brain. I thought this is how like you become a murderer, and like I'm like going through puberty, I'm also like maturing into a murderer or something, and it was really freaky, but that was a really comforting thing for me to see. And I don't really struggle with harm OCD anymore, luckily, because I struggled with it for like a long period in my life, and I don't think it's ever gonna fully go away, but it was at a point, and I don't know why I never told it. Actually, I do know why. I never told anyone about this. Like when I like found this forum online that was like talking about harm OCD and like realized, okay, I probably have OCD, I didn't tell anyone, not even my parents, until like high school, I guess, or maybe even, yeah, like I didn't talk about it with anyone. Honestly, maybe I actually didn't even get diagnosed till college. I went to therapy in high school, but I don't even think I really talked about it because I was so ashamed of it and like still didn't talk about it. But yeah, I didn't tell anyone for years and years and years that I had this OCD because I still felt weird. Like, I still didn't want to go tell people, like, oh, I'm scared of killing someone. Still to this day, like, when I explain to some people, like, oh yeah, like, my OCD used to be that I was scared I was going to kill someone, people are like, wow, that's disturbing. So I just never really told anyone. So I kind of still just sat with these thoughts and, like, did not let them out. And I really, I don't think I talked to anyone about it until college, actually. I, like, just had this going on in my brain my whole life and didn't really talk about it or get any professional help until way later on in life. Actually, the reason that I don't smoke weed and can't smoke weed, I used to smoke weed all the time in high school and try to enjoy it. And I never told my friends this. Like, they always knew I was having panic attacks, but I never really, like, delved into why I didn't want to smoke weed. Actually, it was because I was so scared I was going to lose control of my hands. And I would tell my friends that part. I'd always tell my friends, like, oh, I don't want to smoke weed. Or, like, when I do smoke weed, I get scared that I'm, like, losing control of my hands. That part, yeah, that's true. Like, I was scared of losing control of my hands. But what I left out was that whenever I would have these panic attacks, when I would get high, and it happened every single time, I would be scared that I was going to strangle someone with my hands, or I was going to go get a knife out and stab someone with my hands. And that's why I, to this day, don't smoke weed, because I haven't smoked weed since freshman year of college because I'd have a panic attack every time. And yeah, so, like, throughout high school, I'd still, like, I wanted to be the girl who smoked weed, so I'd still smoke weed all the time, but I would literally sit on my hands after I would smoke because I would be so certain that if I did not sit on my hands, I would lose control of them and I would strangle someone, which I don't know how I, like looking back on myself now, like, now that I don't do drugs, I'm not calling, like, weed a drug. Like, I actually really wish I could smoke weed. Like, it would be so nice to be able to, like, come home and, like, smoke, but I can't. But, like, other drugs, like, when I was doing, like, Coke and Molly and whatever else, like, I don't know how I did that because, like, my OCD brain now, like, I don't think I would have handled that well. But there is, like, the one drug or category of drugs I always stayed away from was hallucinogens, except for this one time I accidentally did them in college. I took, like, a Xanax and wasn't Xanax, and then I hallucinated and had to go to the hospital. Anyway, I always stayed away from hallucinogenic drugs because I was so scared, like, I would definitely kill someone because I would lose control. And that goes to, like, my OCD, and I think everyone's OCD is really just about being a control freak. I struggle so much with wanting to be in control of everything. I want to control and make sure that people around me don't die. I want to control that, like, I don't somehow, like, black out and snap and kill someone. I want to control, like even, like, in this career, I struggle so much with my OCD, and this is, like, getting very vulnerable and, like, whatever, but, like, I struggle every single day. I wake up and I'm like, I literally, like, this could be the end of my career today. Like, everyone could just decide they hate me, and then, like, I just, like, could have to stop doing this, and, like, my life could be over. And I really catastrophize with my OCD. And yeah, but, like, long story, it's all about control and, like, wanting to control things, and, like, I just can't control things. So I think with, like, the harm OCD, that scared me because I was scared that I was going to lose control. And the way that they explain harm OCD is, like, people with harm OCD are, like, the least likely people to actually kill someone because you are so not your OCD thoughts. Like, your OCD, like, the intrusive thoughts you have are, like, disgusting and, like, the absolute, like, they're the opposite of what you would want to do, and that's why you feel so uncomfortable with them. Someone who, like, actually want to do these things, like, wouldn't feel uncomfortable with them. But your brain gets, like, so obsessive and starts playing over. So, like, when I was, like, really struggling with harm OCD, like, if I thought in my brain, like, you know, like, a normal person, like, if someone, like, annoys you, you'll be like, oh, I want to kill them. But, like, then you say that, like, you don't think anything of it. Like, if I ever think, like, oh, they're so annoying, I could kill them, then I'll, in my head, be like, oh my God, I'll, like, obsess over it for the next, like, 3 weeks and be like, do I really want to kill them? Like, why did I think that? So yeah, high school was all harm OCD. And, like, when I would drive in high school, if I hit a stick or, like, a bump in the road, I would turn my whole car around and go back and check and make sure it wasn't a person, because I was so convinced that I actually ran over someone and it wasn't a stick. And, like, I would be scared that I would, like, black out and kill someone and not remember. Even actually recently, I got into a car collision the other day, my first car collision, and it was my fault. I ran into a car. I didn't see that the light was red. It was on a street where I didn't realize there were lights. And it wasn't bad. Like, I was going slow. They were going slow. I just bumped the back of their car. Not great. And I feel really bad about it. But anyway, it was like a very small car collision, like no airbags or anything, like just like a little fender bender. And after that though, and I'm still kind of dealing with this right now, I was like, oh my God, that was the closest I've ever come to killing someone, which maybe is true, but that freaked me out so bad for like 2 weeks after. I felt so unsettled and sick to my stomach. I was scared to drive because I was scared. Like, that just made me realize how easy it is to kill someone, and that freaked me out, and that's actually still freaking me out. Like, now every time I get in my car, I'm like so hyper aware that I could kill someone with my car. So that's like a new thing I'm grappling with. But there's like some intrusive thoughts like I literally don't even ever want to repeat, but I don't know. I have like really messed up, disgusting thoughts all the time is all I'll say. Like, think like the most disgusting thing you can think like a person could do, and I'll like think about it and I'll be scared that I could do that, and like it stresses me the hell out. But a lot of my OCD also is just, I convince myself I'm a bad person. And like I said, my OCD hyperfixates, so I dealt with harm OCD a lot. Then in college, I think my OCD was really like more focused on relationships. And I don't want to say my OCD has ruined relationships, because also I don't think I've ever been in a relationship that's not been toxic. So, but it hasn't helped. Whenever I'm in a relationship, I get so scared that they're going to break up with me. It's like all I can think about, and I obsess over it. And I like crave this like extra like intense reassurance, and I'm always asking for reassurance. And when I get in a fight with someone, I like assume like everything's over, and like I panic. Also, though, it didn't help is like my ex would like, he actually also later got diagnosed with schizophrenia, and so he would block my number and get mad at me for no reason. But, like, you know, like it didn't really help. Like that was also a whole thing in itself. But I, to this day, like whenever I'm in relationships with anyone, and they're actually pretty much always toxic, so maybe it's not my fault completely, my OCD's fault, but I'm always so scared of being left. And that once again goes back to control. Like, you can't control if someone's going to one day like wake up and not like you. And this stayed with my head forever. My ex senior year of college, when we broke up, he would always tell me before we broke up, like, oh, like if you, he had this rule I couldn't cry. If you saw like the TikTok I posted about that a while ago, so that guy, he like had this rule that I could not cry. And if I did cry, like it was manipulative, whatever. But when I would cry, like not even about him, like about like being stressed about law school or like other stuff, my cat dying, he would be like, you're pushing me closer to breaking up with you. You're pushing me closer to breaking up with you. But what really messed with me is I was on the train to go visit him, and there's the song Drive by Miley Cyrus, and I actually kind of am convinced this song is cursed, and that is definitely magical thinking with OCD, which I really struggle with. But I was so convinced, and am actually still convinced the song is cursed, because in high school I listened to that song, and then my boyfriend broke up with me, and I was like convinced like it was cursed, and then I listened to that throughout the whole breakup, whatever. I like vowed to not listen to that song again, because I was just convinced, like that's kind of how my OCD brain works. Like if this has happened once, it'll happen again. I felt the same way about the brand Helmut Lang. I don't wear that because I've been broken up with, whatever. So anyway, I am on the train and I decide, you know what, I'm going to listen to this song. Like, why not? I haven't listened to it in ages, and it's a good song and I'd like to listen to it. So I play the song, get off the train, get to his house, and he breaks up with me. And then I told him that. I was like, oh my God, like this is really messing with my OCD. And he was, first of all, like, you pushed me to break up with you, because I cried when I got there, because he had his arm around a girl on the couch and he ended up dating her, whatever. But yeah, that pushed him to break up with me. But I told him, like, I listened to this song on the train, and I, like, now I was trying to, like, prove my OCD was not real, and now it's clear, like, this is real. Like, this is not OCD. Like, this is actually a cursed song. And then he was like, yeah, well, you manifested our breakup. And that stuck with me to this day. And I think, I don't know, with this whole like manifesting culture now, and I love to manifest myself, but I feel like manifesting has gotten so popular that always messes with my head, because I'm always so scared that my intrusive thoughts are manifestations, and like I'm like manifesting things coming true. And even Celia, my best friend, I'll like get mad at her because when I'll say something aloud, she'll be like, oh, you're manifesting into the universe. And I'm like, please don't say that, because I'm just expressing like a worry I'm having right now. I feel like there's got to be some universal rule somewhere that like these thoughts are not manifestations, because with a manifestation, you have like the intent that you want it. But when you're voicing someone else, or when you're voicing like an intrusive thought that you're scared of, I at least hope the universe can recognize like, I don't actually want this to come true. But that's like the whole reason, like I don't even ever want to talk about what's going on in my head or in my brain, because I'm scared that if I do, it will like manifest. But anyway, I just realized this song Drive like actually might be cursed, because about 2 months ago, I was at my friend's house. I wasn't gonna be like a weirdo and be like, can someone turn this song off? So I just like let it play, whatever. And then about like 2 weeks later, I ended things with my most recent person I was talking to. But once again, while I recognize this is OCD, you will never catch me listening to Drive. But anyway, yeah, in college it was relationship OCD, just being scared people were gonna break up with me, stressing out about that. But in college, when I was dealing with relationship OCD, after my first breakup, I think that's the first time that I was actually officially diagnosed with OCD. I was so torn up over this guy. I was dating the guy who was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He just like really messed with my brain. So I went to a therapist, and then we started talking about like the way my brain thought. And she was like, you have like very severe OCD. And I remember she told me the story because she was trying to get me on medication, and I was like against it because I was on Prozac my freshman year and I thought it made me gain weight, but it also might have been that I was taking men's protein powder like twice a day. I don't really know why I was doing that. I didn't realize that you weren't supposed to put 2 scoops in, and I didn't realize it was supposed to be supplementary. Anyway, probably wasn't the Prozac, it was probably the protein powder. But I was like just against going on Prozac again, and she told me like that my OCD was probably at the point where I needed to go on medication, and still to this day I'm not on medication, and I actually have really recently been thinking about getting on and going on because it's been hard for me lately. But she told me this story that I thought was so crazy, and it is a true story, like you can look it up. It happened in like the 1980s, or don't quote me on that, but there was this guy who like was really struggling with OCD, and he, trigger warning, like tried to kill himself because he was like struggling with OCD so bad, and he shot himself, and where the bullet lodged in his brain, he like, it didn't kill him, it just like literally like turned off the part of his brain that like caused anxiety, and that like led them to do studies to like figure out like how to make medication for OCD. At least that's what she told me, and like I found an article about it. That was like just the craziest story I've ever heard in my life. But yeah, she tried to get me on medication, and I was like very anti it, and then I stopped going to her. I don't really know why, but I've never like gotten enough help for OCD as I should. But that's when I got diagnosed with OCD. I did get a therapist, but I also stopped going to her because I just didn't really think she was very helpful. But my OCD in law school just focused more on me just like not being good enough. I think imposter syndrome, we all deal with it, but for me it was like much more intense. I don't want to say like, oh my gosh, like woe is me, like I'm not saying it like that. I just think my OCD made me focus in on my imposter syndrome more. And I had this really strong worry my first year of law school that they had accidentally admitted me. I was so convinced that they had accidentally admitted me and like I wasn't actually supposed to be there. And so I would stay up like at night waiting for them to revoke my admission, and I don't think I actually felt like I belonged in law school and was supposed to be there until I got my grades back, my 1L semester, because then I was like, okay, well, now that I've gotten grades back, they can't revoke my admission, like I'm too far into this now. But I was so convinced they were going to revoke my admission and that I didn't belong there, and I'm not going to. There's like some things I will never share online because I'm scared one day someone will use them against me. If you are close to me in my personal life, you know what this fear is. And it's not that I don't trust you, it's that I'm scared someone out here is going to be listening to this who's crazy and uses this against me. But all I'm going to say is it kind of went along the lines with kidnapping. I had this one fear, and I obsessed over it and still obsess over it. And like it's a very specific scenario that's not likely to happen, but like OCD, like I'll never be able to share it because I'm too scared if I share it, it will happen. But there was like this one scenario that I started to like stress about in law school, and it's very random and like very unlikely to happen, but I would stay up all night like researching like ways to deal with this and like how to get myself out of this situation. And to this day, I like cannot sleep in silence because my brain will go there like almost every night, and I'll like panic because this is like one situation where there's just not a solution. Now, the way my OCD is, I think it's very hyper fixated on this career and just being scared that it is going to be taken away from me and that I am a loser and I am a failure. For a while, my OCD was hyper fixated on me being a bad person, and now I'm just scared that I'm like a loser, and it's like a very overwhelming feeling, and it's gotten so crippling. It's made me go and decide that I need to get a therapist and I need to go on medication because it's really interfering with this. Like, I didn't want to start a podcast for so long, I told you, because I'm a loser. If you notice, like, I have not been posting on TikTok as much this year, haven't been posting on YouTube as much. It's not because I don't want to, it's because I literally am so convinced people don't care. And my OCD now is just like, I always feel so embarrassed. Maybe that's a mix between like anxiety and OCD, but like I literally live in a constant state of embarrassment, and it's really bad, and I don't know how to get out of it. I always feel like everyone hates me. I think this is more anxiety than OCD, but like I always feel like everyone hates me, and I always feel like everyone's a loser. And like before, like I would post on TikTok and be like, just like not think about it. And now when I post, I'm like, why would anyone even like want to see this? Like no one cares. Like people are just going to be annoyed that I'm even posting and think I'm stupid and think I'm a loser. And I'm trying really hard to get out of this headspace, but I'm literally like not able to on my own, which is why I think I'm going to go back on medication. But it's gotten to the point where I'm so scared of like failing, and this makes me really uncomfortable to talk about because I've seen like on Reddit people say like I'm in my flop era and like I have no direction and like I'm just like whatever, and I don't like to like talk about Reddit and like give them like, I'm sure they'll be like so happy to hear me admitting that I like see those posts and they really get to me, but they really do, because my OCD is so hyper fixated on the fear of failure and the fear of this not working out. And yes, I have a law degree to back me up, and I am getting sworn in to be a lawyer, and that's like obviously an option, but this is what I really love to do right now. But it's interfering with that so much because I'm so scared of like being in this flop era and like everyone hating me and everyone not caring. And then when I see people actually talking about it online, I get more obsessive over it and I get more embarrassed. And so it's like this really intense cycle for me right now where like even when I post podcast promos, like when I post a podcast promo, I literally like physically cringe. I feel sick to my stomach because I'm like, no one cares. And so many of you have sent me such sweet messages on Instagram, like, and I've read like almost every single one. If you've messaged me, I need to respond. Like I want to respond, but like they all mean so much to me. I'm going to go through later today and respond to a bunch of you guys because that means so much to me. But even seeing that still, when I post these like promos, I feel so embarrassed because I'm like, no one cares. And that's where my OCD is right now. But it's gotten to this point now where I feel like I can't even enjoy my life because I just every single day wake up and I'm like, this could be taken away from me. For example, my apartment, I love it. It's beautiful. I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful for it. And I don't enjoy living here because I'm scared that everything's going to fail and I'm like no longer going to be able to live here. And there's like no reason for me to even be thinking that way right now. Like everything is fine. Like everything's going well, but I like am so scared that like one day I'm not going to, like everything's going to fail and I'm just going to have to like pack my stuff up and move home. And I don't know, like I just like, I feel like I can't even enjoy living in this apartment or living in LA because I'm like, oh, well, this isn't going to work out. You're going to have to go home. And I think that's my brain's way of like thinking it's protecting myself. I do that with everything. I don't let myself enjoy things because I don't let myself live in the present. I'm always thinking about what's going to happen and like the what ifs. And it's gotten to the point where I don't let myself enjoy my real life at all because I'm just constantly living in this state of what if. And I think in relationships, I wouldn't enjoy them. Aside from the fact that they were extremely toxic, I'd be like, they're going to get taken away from me. Law school, law school you don't really enjoy in the first place, but like I didn't feel comfortable there because I was like, it's going to get taken away from me. And now it's like, I don't enjoy my life because I feel like this career is going to get taken away from me. And it's really bad. I like should be like, I'm in my 20s. I should be having fun and like so grateful. And like, it's not that I'm not grateful. Like I have so much gratitude. I just feel like this overwhelming, not even like, I also do feel like I don't deserve it, but it's not even like deriving from that. It's just, I'm so scared that like, it's not going to work out and it's going to get taken away from me. And I'm trying really hard to switch that thinking, but that's also where then my like fears of like, oh, am I manifesting this? Because like my thoughts are never like, oh, it's going to work out. My thoughts are always like, it's not going to work out. And that's where my OCD is now. OCD sucks. If you have like weird intrusive thoughts, like don't feel like a freak because they aren't you. And I promise, like if you think like, yeah, like I talked about the intrusive thoughts where I like am scared of killing people, but I think those are like light compared to other intrusive thoughts I have that are like literally disgusting and make me disgusted. Those thoughts could even go through my brain, and like maybe in another episode I'll go further into them, but I really like don't feel, I've never talked to anyone about them, and I don't even want to talk about them because they're so disgusting. But if you have OCD and you have intrusive thoughts, you probably have had like really disgusting thoughts yourself and like feel disgusted, but it's not you and it's not a reflection of you. It's just like, it's just OCD and it's just intrusive thoughts. And there is no shame in going on medication. I definitely need OCD medication, and I think I should go on because it's gotten to a point where it makes me not enjoy my life at all. Like I literally just live in a constant state of fear, and there's no point in worrying about something that has not happened because it's probably not going to happen. If it does, then you worry about it twice. Like you shouldn't worry about things until they actually happen. And I think most people like don't really obsessively worry about things until they happen. But I spend my whole life worrying about things that do not and likely will not happen. And it takes complete enjoyment out of my life. Like I do not enjoy any aspect of my life right now because I just feel like I don't deserve it and it's going to be taken away. On that positive note, I'm with you if you have OCD, and OCD sucks and it makes you feel weird as hell. Like I always walk around just feeling like a weirdo and a loser, and my thoughts are disturbing. I still get them all the time. Sometimes they're more often than not. Right now I'm in my like OCD, just that like I'm a loser and I'm like this person that just sucks, and like that's definitely OCD. And like just remember, like your OCD is not you, and I'm here for you. If you ever want to reach out to me, DM me and like we can talk about OCD, because I know like one thing that really helps me, I have like a few good friends who also have OCD, and we all are like, oh, you do that too? Like I do that, and it helps you not feel weird. So I think it's important like to like find people to talk about it with, to make you realize like it's okay and it's just OCD. So I'm here for you and I love you, and thank you for listening to today's episode. I will see you next week. Love you.